chorus, and really this little chorus is a good little chorus to get us thinking about children and adults and teenagers, and it's 119 in your songbook. So grab that songbook in front of you. You might know the chorus, but you may not know the tune of the chorus, but you probably know the words of the chorus, because the song is God So Loved, and it's John 3:16. So if you look at the author up there, it would be God, right? It's John 3:16. So if you know John 3:16, you know the words, but you may not know the tune. So why don't you play through it one time, and we'll sing it here in just a minute. Go ahead. And that's the little chorus, that's the tune to it. How many of you have ever sung it before? Anybody ever sing it before? Good. All right, that's good. I need all of you up here to help me sing it. How about that? No, I don't need you up here to help me sing it. I just want you to get going this morning a little bit. I see some of you have your Dunkin' this morning, and you know American runs on Dunkin', right? Yeah. But we need to keep this in mind, that God so loved the world. As we think about teaching our students, God loved the world. That's the main thing of Sunday school. One of the arms of Sunday school is evangelism, and we need to make sure we get that message out. So sing it with me. Ready? 119, give us an introduction. For God so loved the world. Here's how it goes. Ready? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, but have everlasting life. Isn't that a good little chorus? Amen. Let's sing it one more time, all right? And sing it this time like we mean it. Amen? And so let's sing it one more time. Here we go. Sing it with me. For God. That sounds good. Ever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, but have everlasting life. All right, you can be seated. That gets us singing and thinking about God loving the world. And so we're going to have Brother Thomas come and teach us this morning on the teacher training. This is a teacher training course. Last night was just tremendous with the material that we got, and I realized some of you probably, you might think to yourself, as you were thinking about some of that material, this doesn't really apply to me. Maybe the first part of that didn't really apply to some of you, but boy, for pastors and leaders in Sunday school, it was some good stuff that was given there. But then the second part, that book that he gave you, it applies to you as a leader, and so that's good. I think most of you were here last night that are here this morning, and so this morning though is just nuts and bolts on Sunday school or teacher training, and so we're excited about having Brother Thomas here with us and our time together. So it's all yours. Take over.
Yes? Oh, yeah. All right, good, I can use my deep voice. I like my deep voice. I used to tell stories with teenagers when we'd have them. We'd have 1,500 teenagers in a room, and I was on Halloween, and we didn't do anything bad. They'd put me in jail for doing stuff like that now, but I mean, we had a casket in the body and everything in there, and they'd be sitting on the floor, and and I would tell a couple of stories, and then the body would actually come out of the casket and preach the message, you know. And we had loads of kids saved, but it was all that was just to get them there, you know. But we really got the gospel to them, and that worked real good. But I had stories. The only thing in the whole building of all those kids sitting there on the floor was a blue light bulb right above the casket. It was the only light in the whole place. And I was up there telling stories about one of them was the body that was not dead. You know, and you get a mic like this, powerful, you can really put your thoughts into it, you know. Or I had one on Walking John. Walking John just came back from the war, and he walked, and you could see him open your window, and you could see him go by your house. You know? So I won't do that now, but I need the lights out to do a better job. But anyway, all right, we're going to start, believe it or not, on page 1. And I want just one rule throughout is you stay on the same page I'm on. Don't be over 3 or 4 pages trying to figure out what the guy's going to say when you get over there. But I believe as a teacher for God, this is probably will be the largest body of work you do for God on this earth before you go to meet your God. What do you do to serve Him? Well, we're talking about serving Him through being a teacher right now, or an assistant teacher, helper. We all can find a role there that we can play in that. And but this is one of the most important roles. It'll require more effort, more study, more research, more practice, more preparation. It'll require some one-on-one time with your students occasionally. It's simply one of the greatest things you can do because it demands so much more of you than many jobs we have in our church. Everything you do in the church is important. It's important to God and important to you because you're doing that to serve Him and help build the church. So you can serve Him just like a teacher can serve Him. And it doesn't matter, but this is going to have more, it's more demanding is what I'm saying. If you're going to really be the teacher you can be, and not just put an hour into study once a week. A lot of teachers are doing that now. They used to spend 4 or 5 hours or more during a week preparing their lesson because it was such a big deal to them. And now I have them say, and they're not ashamed of it. They just say, I do well to get an hour in nowadays in this busyness of this world. Well, somewhere it ought to be the busyness of our Lord in teaching others about the Lord. So we're going to give you some lot of good things that could help you. On page 1, actually page 1 and 2, there are about 24 quick thoughts here. I'm just going to touch on about 4 of them, just real quick. It's kind of like a sentence. And when we come through this whole book, we're going to come back and you can put that out in front of you and review it. In other words, right before you get ready for your next week's lesson, just turn over and look at letter A there. They teach one big idea or main point. Teachers teach one big idea or main point. Teachers often teach too much. Sometimes we come to class, which honestly, we got too much stuff. We need to get back to what is the key stuff. What is the key thought here for today's lesson? Let me spend all my time getting that across in their life so they understand what it means and what God is trying to tell us, and then to help us to be that type of teacher that can explain that to students as we go along. We'll see all this as we go through the little booklet. But there's one thought right there. Look down to letter E. They cause thinking to take place in their classroom. It's my responsibility to cause my students to think in the classroom. And I know some students are hard to get going, but when God gets a hold of their heart, if you teach, they're going to start listening more than they ever have before. But that's the teacher's responsibility. Letter I, H-I, they know without question that learning is active, not passive. Learning is active, not passive. And in most of our classes, it's about the most inactive thing that all the students do. Is just sit there and wait till the guy is through or the lady is through teaching the class. That's not good enough. And so we want to be the best ourselves, make ourselves the best, because we're doing it for God. And one day we're going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and it's not, we're not going to bring up all the things that we wanted to do in our lifetime. But we want to please God through it all. All right? So let's look at the next page. And there's about 24 thoughts here. But go down to RSTU, letter U. They know that the accumulation of content is not the goal. Life change is the goal. It's not how much you teach, how long you teach, or all the content you give them that has to come across, but is life change in there somewhere? How do I put that in my life? How do I put it in my students' life? Now, let me give you a little, there's about 24 things like that. Easy thoughts, you can put them to practice. Just read one or two next week before you start your lesson. Close this book, and then next week come back, open it up, and take the next two and say, how can I put that in my lesson today? That'll start changing you. Here's a thought card. In your classroom, now listen, this is going to be tough to hear because some of us don't come close with this yet. But we want to. That's why you're here. Let me give you a thought here. Hang on to your seat now. In your classroom, when there are no questions by you or your students, when there's no discussions, no thinking required really, nothing to ponder, nothing to see, nothing to read with you, nothing to say, nothing to write down, nothing to go home with, and no time for student response back to God at the end of class, why should we expect anything to happen? We don't want to be like that. But sometimes that's just about exactly what happens in our classroom. We don't like questions because it's going to take some time to stop and answer some kid's question or an adult's question and things like that. But that's how they learn. And if I won't go answer the question they have right now at the moment, then they're not going to get what I was teaching at the moment. That's why they're asking the question. But if I won't even do that and I just go on, then it's going to be a bad day in bedrock. All right. So let's go over to page 3 now. The teacher's role, up the top there, the definition of it, I would call it like this. The teacher's role is to clarify what God has to say today that the student could not possibly miss what God has to say. So I want to be that kind of teacher. Clarity is a key word for a teacher. We gave some booklets out last night, and is one of them that has clarity is big thing, because that means that you know something that they don't know, and you don't explain what they don't know, and so you just go on and you throw these things in and in and in and in, and they don't know what you're talking about, and they don't want to ask a question because I've already told them with my mannerisms that I don't like questions in class. It's taking my talking time away. Well, that's what I'm supposed to be there for. Is to help them. So, clarity is a wonderful word for a teacher, a must for the student. It's a must for us to be clear. So the teacher's role is to so clarify what God has to say that the student couldn't possibly miss it. Letter A there, identify and define key words. Like, look at the verses there. Believe, receive, faith, hell, eternal life, perish. Almost all of those words are in the John 3 verses. John 3, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 36. When do we stop and explain words like that to an unbeliever who's sitting in our classroom? Or to children who don't know words like that, the meaning of them? Look at some of the words in there, in those verses right there, the most common verses we use about salvation. There are words like begotten. Does a kid know what begotten means? Half of the adults in your class won't know. How about condemned? What does that mean? Well, we've all heard about that. You're condemned. Well, who's doing the condemning and what's the level of that and so forth? Perish. What does it mean to perish? A child doesn't understand that. That's like saying, well, I guess you poof. You know. I mean, when you're dead, you're gone. You poof. Because nobody's ever explained that to them. The word wrath of God is in those verses that we use all the time. Wrath of God. Now tell me a child that could get up in your class and explain the wrath of God. Or don't even try to have an adult stand up without 4 weeks' notice on, I want you to explain the wrath of God. I'll give you 5 minutes to stand up in class and explain the wrath of God. But don't do that. Don't do it on him tomorrow, you know, because his wife will take him to some other church. He's not going to have him embarrassed that way. But that's the way it is. But you're a teacher. Your job is explaining these things and illustrating them and demonstrating them and all of that the best you can. So there a lot is on you because this is one of the biggest roles that you'll ever play in the church. And so you're going to have to accept that and go with it. All right. Look down at the bottom of page 3 there. I just put down some words, some of the words we just talked about. Believe, definition. Now, when you go home and start looking back through this, when you come to this page again and that, write your own definition of believe. See how hard it is to explain in your own words what it means to believe. And then give an illustration of that. Could you illustrate that? Now you've got, you can go in your classroom and when it goes through the word believe, the 99 times in the Gospels we read the word believe. But an unsaved person doesn't know what you're talking about. They never believed like you have believed on the Lord Jesus Christ. So you want to be careful with these words and terms are big things. That's what a teacher's there for. For those that don't know them, my job is to explain them. So believe. See, you can be both aggressive and careful at the same time. I know you want to go through the salvation plan in 5 minutes and he's saved for the rest of his life and never have a question about it. But sometimes it takes a little bit more than that, a little bit more effort to help him along the way as we help him, disciple him along the way. But as you come back there, receive. Define that, just like you're going to tell it next Sunday in your class. You're going to define the receive, a definition, and illustration. Let's go to the next page, page 4. And so I put these other blanks in here too, for you not to just see, well, I guess I ought to work on those words. Well, here's the place you work on those words. When you come back to them, here's your spot right here. Faith. Write out your definition of faith and give the best illustration you've ever heard of faith. Sin. Give your definition as if you were teaching your class, whether young or middle-aged or older. Give an illustration for that. Hell. How about defining hell? And give an illustration of that. Letter C, seek to avoid confusion. Sometimes a long Bible search, sometimes it's just too much, especially for new people sitting there and those that haven't been around the Scriptures. Sometimes there's so many verses we just read and read and read and read. And I know it's beautiful because it's the Word of God and we know what we're saying, but we're not talking to us. We're talking to whoever sits in front of us. That's who we're there for. And God needs us there to help them to understand that. So faith, eternal life, perish. I put down usually for perish, that means one definition is to die without God, to go to a place without God, to be forever without God. With the emphasis on without God, without God, without God. How do you explain perish? Or have we never stopped to explain it to anybody? We just assume they know it. All Christians know what that means. Oh, yeah? Ask some of them privately, but ask some of them. You'll find out they don't have much of not a very good explanation of it. So, on down here, seek to avoid confusion on page 4, down at the bottom. Avoid a long search unless you want to do it over the whole period of your time. Slow down in your talk. Here's your word. You got a few blanks now, so get your pen out and put in the word talk. Slow down in your talk. It's too important to hurry. Point to the verse, read slowly. And so as we start going through the scriptures and we point to the verse, and we can read it to our students and have them read with us is a better way to do it. And then we can point to it. It's too important to hurry. Point to the verse and read slowly. Talk to the person, not to yourself. Eye contact is a big thing. We all have our little doodads that we do that just drive the rest of the people silly. I mean, sometimes I've talked to some of our teachers, and I've gone up to them to help them with it. We had a teacher in one of the adult classes. We had a big Sunday school room. It was about this size, and had 2 rows, just like this on there. And this teacher, I was in his class, he would always be over here on the right side, always looking at this crowd. He would hardly ever look at that crowd over there. And he was so bad at that, he would walk back and forth, but he'd usually get about here, and he'd turn around, and he'd talk over here. Sometimes he would walk clear over here. I mean, this place was full of people too, and he'd walk all the way over here and turn around and talk to them over there. It drove us nuts because I was on this side over here. I got where it was so bad, I got where I counted the number of times he looked at us compared to that over there. And I just went over to him one time and told him what he was doing. And so I told him to now put down in your notes, just right here, put right. Down here, put left, right, left. In other words, right, left, right, until he finally got onto it, you know. Sometimes we have to do that because we don't know what we're doing. Other times, I had one teacher that would have a big pen that you made use for a whiteboard, you know, a big marker, and it had a little top on it. And when you pumped it back and forth like that, you could hear it all over the room, you know. And he had the habit of doing that. And he'd read a verse or something, or look something up there, and then he'd just talk, and he'd just bang that thing on it. One day his wife got up in the back of the class and said, "Will you stop clicking your Bic?" Here's his wife telling him that in front of the whole class. But and so he stopped that. It wasn't the same guy. That was another guy with another problem, you know. But that's the way it goes sometimes. We just don't until somebody helps us out with it. So seek to avoid confusion. Slow down your talk. Too important to hurry. Point to the verse. Read slowly. Keep it simple. I'm a sinner. He's a Savior. I need Him. Bang, bang. How simple can I make this? Because I'm the teacher. I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not talking to me. So that's big. On the next page, 5. Ask questions. Avoid assuming an answer. Joy, why'd you come? Joy, have you ever done this before? A little child maybe coming for salvation. You had an invitation to talk to some of them about that. And Joy, why did you come? Joy, have you ever done this before? Because a lot of children, when you start talking to them about the things of the Lord or salvation especially, he comes because you don't know that he's already been saved 3 times and baptized 3 times at other churches. You don't know that because you never asked. You just went right into it because he said he wanted to be saved. And so I go through the John 3 verses again, and here we go, and get through. But, he's been saved at the church about 2 miles from this church, and he was saved in this church once and baptized here. And then he got saved in another church, and then a couple of weeks ago he went to a church across town that was giving big rubber spiders away on the buses, and so he went over there, got him a big rubber spider, and he got saved and baptized over there too. See? Because people are just moving them through too fast. He doesn't understand that when sin comes back in his life, only thing that soul winner said was, God washed all your sins away, son. That's great. You're saved. God washed all your sins away. Well, but he didn't explain that very well. And so a few weeks later, this stuff he used to do, he gets with his old friends and starts doing it again, and he feels that in his heart, and he wants to get saved because, and he comes forward again because the last time the guy told him if God will wash all your sins away. That's what he wants. He wants God to wash those sins away again. But nobody has helped him with that. We have a little booklet like this that's very helpful for a lot of people, what all children need to know following salvation. And these are we have several little booklets here. I didn't bring everything. We usually put up 6 tables of things. We do have some catalogs over here for those of you that are visiting especially, or take a couple back for your church. But this is most of the stuff. But here it talks about what is the first step of obedience after I'm saved. Well, that's baptism. And so the whole thing's about baptism here. Why do we baptize like that? Why do we do it like that? We explain that to a child or to an adult. We wouldn't give them one of these, but so the next page, here's the big one with little bus children and people like that. If I do sin again after I'm saved, what happens? See, they don't know that because the soul winner didn't go any further than having him pray a prayer, and that was it, and nobody followed up on him. And so he's got more sin, and the last time they said, you get saved, you get sins washed away. I need to get saved again. And he will. Your church or somebody else's, and so forth. So sometimes we need to be very careful with those that we're dealing with, help them in every way that we can. All right, let me speed up. I get so excited. I want to tell you everything I've ever known, ever have about these things. On page 5 there, questions help you get inside the mind. Did I give you that one yet? Questions help you get inside the mind. So you ask Joy, why did you come? Joy, have you ever done this before? Avoid those yes or no, nod of the head. They tell you about zero. Just nodding the head tells me nothing. So questions help you get inside the mind. See, you need to understand. If he understands, then you can go on. And that's the point of it all. If I don't know for sure where he is for sure, then I don't know when to stop or when to go on. But I need him to talk to me. That's what I'm trying to get out. Now look at the next one. Now, Joy, if you wanted to be saved right now, what would you do? Now, stop talking and listening. You can go through the salvation plan with a child or even an adult. And then when I think he understands that, I want him to say, Joy, just like what we put in here, Joy, this is let him tell you if he got it or not. Now, Joy, tell me again what we talked about in being saved. And if he doesn't know anything about it, why go ahead and have him pray again? Somewhere he's missing it, and that's my role as a teacher. I need to do that. See, every student you teach, whether it's a child or an adult, every student you teach is one prayer away from making everything right with God. That's a key thought. whoever you're teaching, whoever the preacher's preaching to, everybody in this whole room is only one prayer away from making everything right with God. Not just salvation, but anything in the life that is not pleasing to God. We're only one prayer. Dear Lord, I'm that close to being saved in your Sunday school class today, if you'll just stop talking in time that you can deal with me about salvation. But if you come in with too much stuff, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and show you how damaging it is to have too much stuff. You never get to the conclusion until it's time the other classes starting getting out, and then your class is not interested anymore when they hear the other side getting out. So anyway, but let him tell you if he got it or not. All right, let's go to the next page, page 6. The learning process, just briefly, it organizes your lesson for next week, the process, the learning process. This is how I would put it down. I've seen 4 or 5 different designs on that. Here's how I would say it. Number 1 is to know, to understand, to personalize, to practice equals change. Life change is what we're talking about. Now, look at down below. To know the facts. Here's your word that goes in there. To know the facts. What does the Bible say? Head knowledge does not indicate that learning has taken place. It's really only step 1. See? So, step 1 would be probably about 5 minutes or so. I may define the topic we're going to talk about. Start with a local event that happened downtown or over at the school 2 weeks ago. Did you hear about that? Well, everybody knows about that. Well, let's tie that in. A Bible illustration, maybe. What if this happened to you? A Bible story or real life story I could put in that first 5 minutes to grab their attention, because stories do that better than just words. But stories really help people grab a hold of it. It's like starting your story. Boys and girls, once upon a time. You have the attention of every kid in the place. Because that's just like us. We grew up like that. Stories. And they're so easy to listen to. And Jesus used stories all through his teaching on this earth when he walked this earth. So what we're going to do is to know the facts. What does the Bible say? Head knowledge does not indicate that. To understand, to see what the Bible truth clearly means. What it means, that's your word. So we define words, we illustrate, we discuss, we allow questions, whatever it takes to grasp it. See, he must understand. So maybe we read the passage together then to get a person to listen. We can't leave them in the dark, so we want them to understand what we're talking about here. Knowledge and understanding varies greatly when you get into spiritual words and terms. All right, then the next step is to personalize. Now watch this. This will help you. Once understood, God's truth must become God's truth to me. To me. So personalizing brings truth closer home. We compare it, we contrast it, we give at-home illustrations. See, our heart is stirred by what we can identify with. And if I can't identify that in my life, then something's missing in my life. And as a teacher, that's my role, is to help them to do this and know this. So that's what I'm going to try to help them with. And then the last one is to practice. How does it look in street clothes? If God's truth never gets into my lifestyle, then perhaps learning is yet to take place. I'm talking about the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday lifestyle, the out-of-church lifestyle. Your students won't be back for 7 more days or 6 more days till next week. And so I'm teaching what is pertaining to their lifestyle on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. It's a big thought. That's why your job is so big. It's so big. And that's why God has allowed you a position as a teacher or worker or teacher or any part of getting the Word of God across in your church. Every part is absolutely necessary. So, if it's going to be dynamic, it must be specific. And that's the point. See, specific is the point of a teacher. I need to get specific on. No, tell me. Don't just rattle on. Tell me specifically. Say what you want to say to me, and that will help me understand. And then, if I can agree with that, then my life can change right away. All right. Now, in just a little bit, we're going to go. Well, let's go to page 8 here, or 7. I think it's 7. Yeah. Okay. A little bit later, we're going to. We got a box right here. Now, this is not for sale or for steal, either one. These are candy bars up here, because we're going to have some closed book quizzes as we go along. About 3 of them. And if you get the answer first, on a Snicker bar. That's one of my favorites. How about a Twix bar? How about a Twix? You like Twix? All right, there's you one. See, he was so nice, he got one right away. None of you got one right away, did you? All right, so the big milk chocolate bars and things like this. But these are things you can win, but you got to win it. I was in a church one time. We had a big crowd, about over 100 in there, and there was 6 ladies sitting on the second row. 6 ladies in a row, elderly ladies, not old ladies, just elderly, moving in that direction. I can talk that way now because I'm still I'm 81. This is what you look like when you're 81. You know, but I think I'll just go on anyway. But anyway, I was telling everybody about the candy bars that I had over sitting on the front row over there, and I said, now we got candy bars to give away, and as I looked up, all 6 of these ladies were biting on one of the candy bars. They'd already picked them up and peeled them off and started. And I said, "Wait a minute!" I didn't do anything. I just let it go. Poor souls. Probably hadn't had a candy bar since day before yesterday. You know, when you're older, you can do anything you want to do. You know, just get out of my way. I'll do what I want to do. If I want to eat Snicker bars, I'll get one. But anyway, they're for giveaway. Now, let's look at the next page here on page 7. Page 7. If I don't know my students' needs, then why am I their teacher? That's a hard one. Here, I'm in charge of this class, that class, whatever class. And if I don't even know their needs, why am I their teacher? That's a tough one to swallow. No, I can't know all their needs. I can't know maybe even the top 2 prayers they're praying for. But maybe I can know some of the other prayers that's on their list. They'll let me go that far. But understanding how to close the learning process. We just talked about the learning process. To know, to understand, to personalize, to practice. Hopefully that would equal change, life change. So, understanding how to close the learning process. There are multiple needs in classes, always. And so there are multiple decisions that could be made in classes. They could all hear the same lesson and make 2 or 3 decisions could be made that didn't pertain to exactly what the teacher was trying to get across, but it reminded them of something else, and it did the same work. It taught them. Letter A there, the lesson should lead to a decision, a time to respond to God at whatever level is needed for them. And we'll touch on this a little bit later. Letter B, the lesson should conclude or end with a main focal point, F-O-C-A-L, main focal point. Focus in on what you start out on focus, and you keep that focus all the way through until you're ready to respond at the end. Here's a good thought. You got some extra white space there in your booklet. I'm going to give you a few things as we go along just to put down a quick quote here, something like this. Put this down. If they can easily understand, my students, as I teach, if they can easily understand, they may also easily respond. That's the point. And that would be a wonderful day in your class. If they can easily understand, it's my part, here comes their part. They may also easily understand. So, what do? I make it easy to understand the best I possibly can. That's what I want to do. I want to be that kind of teacher. This must be the clearest of all. Students must know how to live when they walk out the door of our classroom. What do they begin doing? When do they stop doing? When? How? And so on. Have you explained that? Letter C down below, you don't have to talk till the bell rings or whatever causes you all to stop and dismiss. When does decision time begin? Lives can change right now, right in your classroom. Doesn't have to wait to the church service. Doesn't have to wait to the time to go to the altar. It can happen in your classroom. You don't have to talk to the bell rings. Letter D, plan. Plan your conclusion. Allow time for your conclusion. And then letter E, get to the point quickly and stay there. Whatever that key point of your whole lesson, you must arrive there quickly. Don't take 20 minutes or so to get to what you really came to say, and then half your lesson's already gone, the time, and you don't have half the time to say it. Get to it in about 2 minutes and stay there, okay? Then you have plenty of time to get it across. I call it the big five. I put out the bottom of every lesson I have, down at the bottom of it, on the last page, I'll put big five, big five. Now for that's just for me. It reminds me, I want to stop with 5 minutes left on the clock before the bell rings. I want to stop. Now I'm going to allow God to do what only God can do. Work on the inside. I'm going to give them time to respond to God about the truth we just said. It's not always salvation. There's a multitude of other things that are in our life that we need to respond to God about. And your lesson brought those up. So that's to me, that's big a part. See, you don't normally say yes to God next week sometime over the lesson you taught today. They don't normally next week sometime they decide, I think I'll do that. Usually the biggest response from their heart comes right when they just heard you teach it. And now they have to have time to respond to it. But a lot of times we don't do that. How many of you in here, when you teach a Sunday school class, have an invitation at the end? Any of you do that? Okay. Try it sometime. If your lesson is leaning in that direction, why not give them time to respond to God about it? I mean, they don't have to respond to me. I can't forgive their sin. I can't give what God can give to them. But if I turn them over and give them time to speak to God right now, just like pastor does. Well, most churches, a pastor he always has an invitation, no matter what kind of lesson it was. He gives an invitation. It's time for us to respond to God about the truth that came and come to the altar if need be, or in our seat if we don't want to do this. But whatever, it's a time to respond to God right now, because as soon as you dismiss, I guarantee you, in a Sunday school class, here's what's going to happen. You're going to say class dismiss, and everybody in that class, listen now, within 10 seconds, everybody in that class is talking about something entirely different than what you've been pouring your heart out for the last 40 minutes over. That's just the way it is. I mean, as soon as you say class dismissed, old Elmer steps up and said, "Hey, Leroy, we're still going fishing on Saturday, right? Hey, I'm going over Walmart. They got a big old red bug over there now, fishing bug, and it's got white dots on it, and it's killing the bass. They're eating it alive. I'm going to get me one. Want me to get you one too?" I mean, that's just everyday talk. But within 10 seconds, that's how far his mind is from what you've been talking about for 40 minutes over here. And it's gone. It usually doesn't come back sometime. It's just lost in whatever comes next. And then they're going to go right into a church service and hear another 4 points or so and a message. And, and they've lost, sometimes we've got too much going on. But we can solve that in Bible classes. They can be saved right there in your seat before you dismiss. They can turn their life over. An adult man coming in here, and he's had one thing. He's surrendered almost everything to the Lord, but there's one thing he never has, and he just can't seem to get it on. And you talked about surrender of life and what it means, what it really means when you surrender all to God. And you do it only to God, not to me or anybody else. You do it to God, and He hears your prayer, your plea. And it never happens unless you allow time for it. He could hear that whole message, and his wife sitting right beside of him, tears in her eyes. I've seen it happen. Wanting because of the Sunday school lesson, wanted so much for her husband to get that one thing out of his life. Other than that, he is perfect to me. But that one thing hurts him, and it drives me crazy. And she's praying, and then I don't even allow time for it to happen. He gets up, everybody starts talking to him again, goes out the door the same way he came in. And I'm not saying you always, every single time, you have to have an invitation. I'm not saying that. But if your lesson leans in that direction, why not? And you're the only one in charge of that. You're the only one that will allow time for that and stop talking and allow time for that to happen, you see. Otherwise, it's a good lesson. I've heard it 30 times, but still didn't do anything because I didn't talk to God about it. It's that important. So, plan your conclusion, allow time for it, get to the point quickly and stay there. Never underestimate the spirit or the ability or the faith of a child. The faith of a child. I've got everything I've got's about faith of children almost and teenagers. But it's big. It's big. All right, let's go over to the next page here. We're getting close to one of our quizzes here now. Here it is. It's going to happen here after this page. We're going to have the first closed book quiz for those Twix bars and Reese's peanut butter cups. There must be 2 big ones right in there. And but the Snicker bars, I can't get that out of my mind. And but anyway, we're going to get that right after this page on page 8 here. All right, let me emphasize this a little bit more on not overdoing it with words and terms. Come in with your thought, stay there, spend all your time there. Let me give you something you probably have never heard of before. Surveys. This world takes surveys on everything. Educational surveys do this too. Surveys on the lecture method in the classroom, lecture method of teaching. Almost every teacher lectures some. Some do just that. You get in college and you get a whole lot of lecture. But lecture is all right. But there can be too much of it at the same time. But let me give you this thought. The average teacher, if talking, now this is through thousands and thousands of surveys, the average teacher, if talking is the main thing that they do, hardly anybody says anything else in class but that teacher. The average teacher will say between 8,000 to 10,000 words in a given Sunday school time. If nothing happens but the words of a teacher, they start and they go on and on and on, and they keep watching their watch and they keep watching their notes and see how they can get it all in. That was their thought, get it all in. They'll say between 8,000 to 10,000 words. You can't recall that much. That's why I'm giving you a workbook, and that's why I want you to take it home. That's where the value comes. Today, just kind of pushing you in that direction. You can't recall that much. You can't recall the since before last the guy gave. See? Tell me what we just taught on the other page there. You want to try that? I just taught that. Yeah, but then I taught this, and then I taught this, and then I added this to it, and it's gone again. So it doesn't have to be, but that's how it is a whole lot here. So on this page, look at this. The sin of assuming, I've got 5, 6, 7 little words down there. You're going to either teach the way people learn best, or your class will go and continue to just sit there and wait till you're through. That's reality. I don't like to say that to you. I don't like to say it to myself. But it's exactly what happens over and over and over and over all the time. Now, watch this. I'm going to prove to you. Say 8,000 to 10,000 words. That's a lot of words. Listen to this for a moment. Look at the line here, 1 to 7. We assume that if we're teaching, they're listening. We assume that talking is teaching. We assume that everyone can't wait to run out and live that way. We assume that using words and would explain things better. We assume that students can learn multiple lessons in a single lesson. We assume covering all the material is more important than thoroughness. We assume that listening is learning. Now, in 30 seconds, I just said 66 words to you. In 30 seconds. Probably all you remember is we assume. We assume, we assume, we assume. We got that part. But I forgot what we were assuming. So there are good thoughts there and all that. But this reminds myself by reviewing the list often, not just once in a lifetime, see. So sometimes it's just too much words without student involvement, or somebody else saying something, or somebody else reading a verse, or somebody else giving a testimony about the very thing you're talking about, you see. Because we think, if you'll just sit down and wait till I'm through, you'll get it, you'll get it. Yeah, but you never ask them if they ever get it. Don't do that, it'll break your heart. So every student you teach, again, is only one prayer away from making everything right with God. All right. Close book quiz. Close your book. Close your book. And let's see if I can give it out here. Okay. Son, would you come up here and help me, please, just a minute? I want you to carry the box around. When somebody wins something, you just stick this in their nose and let them pick out whatever they want, okay? And all right, now this is a closed book quiz. Everyone, check all the preachers here. They usually have theirs still open. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to get over here so I can try to see everybody. Get on this side of the pole and that. All right, we'll try it just raising your hands. And if that doesn't work, well, we'll have to get you to stand up. All right, here's the first quiz now. The teacher is to so clarify God's truth that the student could not possibly miss what God has to say. Can anybody explain that to me? Let me just start off this way. The teacher's role is to so clarify who? or what? The teacher's role is to so clarify God's truth. Same thing. Yeah. All right, great. Hey, now this is your dad's, not yours, okay? All right. Number 2, I'm going to give you one with 2 blanks in it. You can be both and at the same time. You can be both. Let me give you the first one. You're going to try it over there? Okay. You can be both. Understanding in what? No, not exactly what I mean. We're giving big stuff away here. It's got to be specifically there. That's right. That's what we said. All right. I'll give you the first one and try again, see if you can give me the second one. It's not going very good. You can be both aggressive and at the same time. Both aggressive and yes, ma'am. No. Both aggressive and at the same time. Careful. Both aggressive and careful at the same time. All right. You need to watch your book now. All right. Ask questions. Questions help you get where? When you ask questions, how does that help you? Yes, sir. That's good enough. Inside the mind. That's good enough. All right? Take that one. The learning process. I'll begin and you finish it. There were 4 or 5 parts to it, actually, with the end. I'm going to start it, and you jump when you think you're ready. You think you've already jumped. We got jumped here. Give me the learning process. Time's up. Yeah, absolutely right. Woo! Now we're cooking. All right. Now, also, if you already won something this round, then you're out of it for this round. See, if we don't do that, the slow learners will never get into this thing. See? So we gotta help people around here. All right. Number 5, your lesson. If your lesson is to be dynamic, it must be what? If it's going to be a dynamic lesson, it must be absolutely right. Specifically what I was trying to get to. All right. Here's number 6. Every student you teach is only. That's close enough. One prayer away from making everything right with God. Got another winner there. All right. Now make sure we don't get any double winners here, because we'll run out of those things before we get. All right, here we go. You're doing a great job. Let's see. If talking by the teacher is all that happens in class, how many words will the teacher actually say? Between how many words? 8 to 10,000 words. Good. All right, great. All right, let's stop right there. And then we'll have another quiz a little bit later on. Now, see, some of you you gotta look at this and say, "What did he say? You got to mark something down. That'll help you remember it. Just put them down there anywhere, son. That'll be fine. And we'll get them up again in a little bit. And we're going to go for just a few moments here and take a break, and then we'll come back and start again. So. Your lesson is good, only as good as they understand it. Every student, we already done that. All right, next page, page 9. When you can visualize, when you can illustrate, when you can demonstrate, students have different styles or learning preferences. Did you know that? Do you use visuals? Well, some would have to say, no, I never do. I just don't have time to get that stuff ready. You ought to. I mean, visuals is one of the main items that help you learn faster, and it stays with you longer. Anything you can use as a visual. Even if you act something out in front of them, that is like having a picture up showing what was happening. Do you welcome questions? You don't like questions? Have you ever used brainstorming, or do Do you like interactive learning, or do you ever use problem solving, or any of those other things? Do you ever role play or demonstrate truth? See, words are powerful, but demonstration is more powerful. And so that's what I say, when you can. In fact, we've got little booklets over here. I did, 11 of these small booklets. I call them a small book series. We have the bigger books over here. But let's see, where was that one I was talking about? We have these like this one is the great value of 1-point lessons. All these booklets here have at least 20 pages in them. It's about the size of each one of them. And they sell for, I think, $2, something like that. Cost me over $1 to print them. But the great value of 1-point lesson, getting from the generalities of a truth to the specifics. If you're going to talk about prayer, get there right now and start talking about it. And so it goes through these and shows you the values of just having 1-point lesson where I get there, like, praying prayers or praying specific prayers. All right, that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about today, praying specific prayers. That'll help my students. Here's a teacher's week of preparation, the teacher's time of presentation, the week you spend getting it ready, the hour you have in your Sunday school class, a teacher, the significance of a teacher. In God's sight, how significant is a teacher? Anticipation, expressive imagination, all those terms we describe in there. Here's one, methods, techniques of classroom involvement. Absolutely jam-packed with how you can involve your classes. Application is why you teach. Do you ever get to the application, or you assume they have to come up with the application for themselves? But application is why you teach. That's a big one. The greater purpose is life change. Life change. That's why we allow life change at the end of our lesson. And if we don't allow them to even have time to talk to God, then that's out the door. One of these booklets here has 118 Bible words in the back, definitions, a little more simple definition for those of you that work with children especially. When you're talking about words and terms in the Bible, and remember those verses we talked about in John 3:16 and all those great big words there, condemnation and all kind of things like that kids wouldn't have a clue on. They're alphabetical listed. There's 118 words in there. Atonement, begotten. How do you explain begotten? Beseech, blasphemy, buckler, carnal, cast away, charity, chasten, commendeth, and so on like that. Just you come to a word in your lesson you want to use, just look it up and they'll give you one of the most simple definitions you can use with children. And it needs to be simple with children. So there's all kind of things here. You can, if you're a church, you can buy a whole set of these. You can buy all 11 of them and use them as a lending library, and or you can buy them for $2 a piece, something you would like. But that's why we do stuff like that. It's just we need to learn. We need to read all the time. Some of us are not good readers. I was never a good reader. I hated to read. I was raised in the hills of Tennessee, and I'd go out, spend all day with my dog Fritz and a BB gun, and I'd shoot 1,000 Indians before I came back home out there. Leaves became Indians, and rocks became Indians, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it when I got to college, but I found out I had to do something there. And then most of the books back then, in those days, way back then, in those days, most of the books that were written, Christian books, were my 10 best sermons by the pastor. And finally I found another place that was putting out other stuff, and so, but all these will help you up here. So anyway, let's go on over to page 9 here. Look right there in the middle. This is big, major right here. The goal is not necessarily to limit communication to my personal best style of speaking, but to their best style of listening. Maybe you had never heard that before, but it is so true. It's always been true. It's a great little line there. Their style of learning is the way they perceive information. And it's different. They have different learning styles. And you may have 3 or 4 different learning styles out of a class of 6 people or 10 people. And they just learn. But others, if you put something up here that's a visual, instantly they've got it. Others would rather try to close their eyes sometimes if you're doing something like that and just listen to your words, because they learn best. They can listen to words and take in words, and there's no problem for them. But other people, that's hard to do. And so we talk about all the different ways you can get involved there. Their style of learning is the way they perceive information. But look at the little research done there. Research conducted by Nader and Rollins, a real big firm. They found an alarming statistic about learning preferences. They looked at 1,500 adults who had dropped out of school in the 8th grade and found that 99.60 of them were sensing dominant learners. In other words, they were visual and interactive learners, but the teachers never taught that way in their class. That could be talking about our Sunday school class, too. Author Rick Blackwood said this, in the book Power of Mental Multi-Sensory Preaching and Teaching. He said, you should not ask, is this student smart? Rather, you should ask, how is this student smart? Is the student hearing smart, visually smart, interactively smart? Next page. So here's another thought to put down in your notes. Someone said this, and I can't remember. I've read it in a book somewhere, and I've searched a lot of books. But some person wrote this, and I thought it was great. Crystal clear communication. Write that down. Crystal clear communication translates into crystal clear comprehension. Crystal clear communication, that's the speaking I'm doing, translates into crystal clear comprehension, their understanding. That's a good thought for a teacher. The accumulation of content is not the ultimate goal. See, look at the little block there. At best, more stuff means that less will be covered thoroughly. That's what that means. The more I come to class with, the less I can cover any of it thoroughly. Where it says 1, 2, 3 there, the teacher will not explain anything thoroughly. This is what happens. The teacher will talk way too much, and there'll be little to no classroom involvement. That's because I've got so much stuff. I have told myself, if I say all of this, if I can say all of this, they'll get it. They'll get it. I don't have a clue that a lot of them don't listen that way. That's not how they learn. So I've got to do a little bit something better than that. Now look on your page here of application. Application is a major part of your lesson. Major part of your lesson, application. It's why we teach. This is at the top of page, what is this, 11, I think, 12? Okay, but application. The reason we teach a lesson is to explain and cover all the stuff in our quarterly. Wrong. Our thinking more often stops and starts with content. Thus, if we cover it all, we feel successful. Wrong. Without application, it's hard to arrive at any destination of life. From the book, The 7 Laws of the Learner, this quote was there. Content is the what in your blank. Content, all the stuff you're going to come with, is the what. Application is the so what. So, what do I do? Now that you gave me all this, what do I do? How do I do it? See, that's the bigger part. So, I can't come with a heavy load of notes because I'll have no time to illustrate or demonstrate those things. Ephesians 4:32 goes over one of the verses there, and You can think that through. And be ye kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiven you. A beautiful verse. We've known that for years and years. Instead of just one lesson on all three, how about breaking it into 3 lessons? You see, now I have plenty of time to have my class actually go out and we look at kindness and tenderhearted and forgiving. What does all those things mean? Then let's all go out together as a class and let's be kind one to another this week. We talk about in the class about different ways, and we put things on a marker board, all the 20 ways up here you can be kind one to another. And then we'll have some that I've already contacted to give a testimony of. This couple over here will give a testimony of how kindness brought them together. And somebody else will say how kindness led them from no church to our church and so forth. And let them give testimony and things as we go through. So we talk about that and we try to clarify what does it mean when God says, be ye kind one to another. And then we're going to try to find all the ways we could go out and do that next week. And then as a whole class, we're going to go out and what we're going to do, we're going to find 3 people. I'm going to find 3 people this week that I can do an act of kindness for them. Whether it's something secret I do that they don't know who did it or whatever. But I'm going to do something kind, 3 things to a person. And then once that's through, we'll come back next week and we'll talk about how all the testimonies of what happened when I did an act of kindness like God told me to. And then we'll begin our lesson on tenderhearted. Now we're going to use and talk about tenderhearted. Most of us couldn't even give a definition of tender-hearted. What does that mean? God said it, forgiving one another. The last one, that's the biggest one, of course. But we're going to do tender-hearted next week the same way. And then we're going to do the big one, forgiving one another. So maybe that demands 3 lessons instead of 1 because you're competing against each one, what you're trying to do and so forth. All right, down at the bottom, let me put 3 words at the bottom there. In your conclusion, attitudes can be changed because of a thorough understanding of these words, but attitudes must be followed by action. That's the word. By action, if fruit will be produced. There's got to be some results in your life to start with and in the student's life. All right? Here's the action is implied to each. Be ye kind. Be ye tenderhearted. Be forgiving. Remember the Beatitudes and all that? So it's action that we're after. The proof of the lesson is, down to the next blank, the proof of the lesson learned is in the action. That's a change in attitude and lifestyle, not just I've heard it again. Another lesson on be ye kind. And of course, this is, the idea is action here, and that's the point. Students down at the bottom, students knew they should live like that before they walked out the classroom door. Now you just taught them how to live like that. But application has to take hold to prove it so. And see, it's harder to prove 3 things in 1 week than 1 thing in my life. Let me learn how to be kind one to another. Then let me learn how to be tender-hearted one to another. Then let me learn how to be forgiving one another and so forth. I can't do all that in 1 week. So break it up sometimes like that helps a whole lot. See, the absence of our actions piles up our sins of omission. Those of us older ones, the biggest problem we have now, we don't do a lot of things we used to do. But we have a real problem with the sins of omission that are still in our life. We forgot about those sins until maybe pastor comes up with that same type message again, and it reminds me, oh yeah, I still haven't taken care of that. And sometimes if there's no time to take care of it, out the door we go. We're talking about going fishing and hunting. There we go again. And down at the very bottom, the application, make it stay there. At the judgment seat of Christ, we're judged from our life of actions, not good intentions. You'll not get up before God at the judgment seat of Christ and tell him what you intended to do with his word. Too late. Let's take a break. About 10-minute break, something like that. And if you want to come up and look at these books, most of them, I have a little tag. I didn't bring all my professional stuff and all this. The only thing I can take is a check or money today. For those of you that got the note on, we're doing the whole thing. We're asking $10 for the whole thing we're doing today with your booklet and everything. But these things you can just get what you want on any table, add it up yourself, please, and we'll pay for it like that. Okay? All right, so we're going to take a break. You got back in time to take a break. All right, let's take a break. Okay? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, thank you so much.